fought his way into our continent. The military dictatorship then crumbled, and single-party dictatorships and gave way to multi-party elections. In many of our countries today, election management bodies have been captured by the ruling parties or individual politicians, making it impossible to have fair contests. The capture leads to skewed processes like voter registration, appointment of election management officials with disastrous consequences. As a continent, we have to agree that critical development efforts cannot succeed without a legitimate and democratically elected government that is responsive and accountable to its citizens and to the investor community. Free and fair elections are indicators to investors that there is the government which is in place that believes in fairness and the rule of law. When a government comes in through a fair ballot, investors get the reassurance that their property will be respected, taxation will be fair, investment rules will be simple and clear, and they will not have to resort to corruption and bribery to set up or stay in business. Illiberal regimes send signals that are direct opposite of what investors are looking for. Professor Mike touched on Boise State University in the US wrote, and I quote, "Many investors conclude that governments that violate electoral laws to stay in office would also be willing to violate investors' property rights. If the election was rigged and the leader is overriding laws and constitutional provisions, no one in the country can stand up to the government. And so investment falls because there's a lot of economic risk in doing business in countries with unconstrained governments," unquote. Regimes that come to power by rigged elections cannot guarantee judicial independence and other state and non-governmental bodies that are critical to the rule of law, which is an indispensable requirement for a good investment climate. We therefore need to internalize the fact that elections are important political risk assessment tools for investors. Investors look at how elections are being conducted before they can risk their investment in that environment. I must hasten to add here that by investors, I'm not simply talking about foreign investment. I refer also, most importantly, to domestic investors. Africa has seen swings in fortunes before, from bad to better and back to worse. Much, if not all of those swings, have resulted from elections that fail to meet the minimum standards for free elections. In other cases, there are no elections at all. In the mid-1990s, Africa was very hopeful following the introduction of multi-party politics on the continent. Our leaders and intellectuals proclaimed an African renaissance. The grim days of post-colonial Africa were declared over. The Cold War, too, was over, and with it, the misrule and dictatorships perpetuated by military rulers, big men, and presidents for life. I recall in 1994, our very own President Nelson Mandela, Madiba, declared, and I quote, "Africa cries out for a new birth. We must, in action, say that there's no obstacle big enough to stop us from bringing about a new African renaissance, unquote. I recall then when President Bill Clinton set out on a six-nation visit to Africa in 1998, his destination were the countries that were seen to be shepherding this renaissance. The nations were also viewed to have a new generation of leaders that would protect and champion the ideals of democracy and economic prosperity. Ghana, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, Botswana, and Senegal, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Mali, Democratic Republic of Congo, then under President Laurent Kabila, were among them. Ahead of the President Clinton's visit, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright proclaimed, I quote, "The era of the big man who comes to power, stays for life, and robs his country blind is over," unquote. Unfortunately, she spoke too soon. We now know that the era was not over. We also know that the fortunes of the countries that were seen to be shepherding the Renaissance have swung back and forth over the past several decades, and some are worse off today. In a number of cases, those who are lauded as a new generation of African leaders have become a new generation of African strongmen and tyrants. They preside over de facto one-party states that do not allow for self-government and have not established mechanisms for peaceful transfer of power. Without that guarantee, the growth we see in some of those countries today and the stability the authoritarian regimes seem to have enforced are sure to collapse at some stage, and those countries will have to begin afresh. Elections and democracy are failing in Africa, not because a majority of African voters prefer authoritarianism, non-democratic forms of government. It is happening because an organized elite keen to protect narrow selfish interests has forged strategic alliances and captured strategic systems and institutions of various nations with the sole purpose of subverting the substance of elections. In a number of countries, we are witnessing a situation in which the majority is increasingly at the mercy of the minority with regard to free, fair, transparent, and credible elections. Africans who wake up at dawn, stand in long queues all day to cast their ballot, end up with results that indicate their voters were not counted and did not count. In the last decade, many of our nations have evolved modern systems for collection, coalition, transmission, and tallying of election results. Many have adopted result management systems that combine traditional vote counting and tallying processes and the use of technology to verify voter eligibility, register voters, and transmit results. In addition, we have seen the evolution of the electoral laws to allow representatives of political parties to independently tally the results and transmit to party tallying centers. But as we have witnessed in Kenya both in 2017 and 2022, technology is getting compromised and results altered. This has severely damaged the credibility of election management bodies in many of our countries. Let us cite an example. According to Gallup poll, 64% of Kenyans did not have the confidence in the honesty of elections as we prepared for the 2022 elections. Similarly, the Afrobarometer survey shows that 24% of Kenyans thought that the elections are not at all free and fair. A further 18% thought that elections may be free and fair, but there are major problems. Only 23% of Kenyans thought that elections are completely free and fair as we headed to the polls. The Afrobarometer survey further showed that 31% of Kenyans did not trust our election management body, the IEBC, at all, and 23% trusted it only a little. Only 19% trusted the IEBC a lot. According to the Gallup poll, the percentage of Kenyans who have confidence in the honesty of elections declined from 58% in 2015 to only 35% in 2021. I believe the picture is pretty much the same in many African countries. Existing electoral laws are not seen to assemble an electoral system that the people believe is transparent, accountable, and democratic. There is therefore need for further reforms to make the voting process more accessible and reliable, enhance protections against mistakes, irregularity, confusion, and fraud. There is need to rethink the use of technology. Either we adopt a reliable election technology, including voting machines, and generate a voter verifiable audit trail, so voters can confirm that their choices are being recorded accurately, or we go fully manual. In Kenya, the Supreme Court ruled that the technology used by the IEBC in the 2022 election met the constitutional standards of integrity, verifiability, security, and transparency. It is unclear on what the objective criteria the Supreme Court arrived at this conclusion. There is also the question of centralization of election management. Do we need one big electoral body to manage our elections, or should election management be devolved to the states, the regions, or counties, as in the case of the United States? Should parties be allowed to second their members to the election management bodies? My answer to these two questions is yes. Here's my call to action. If Africa's elite autocrats are uniting against free and fair elections, Africa's democrats must also unite and defend democracy. We must build a continent-wide democracy coalition and look out for each other. The continent's democrats must treat the subversion of election anywhere on the continent as subversion of the people's will everywhere on the continent. It should be clear in the word and deed that whoever makes a move to ascend to power by means other than credible and constitutional elections is not only condemned, but subjected to sanctions and removal from such office. So far, the trend has been that an election malpractice that goes unpunished in one country provides a script for another country and then becomes the new normal. I will not go into details of my own country, Kenya, and the critics brewing there because of an election that was compromised in August last year. But Kenya's case must sound a warning to all. I am not a stranger to Nigeria. In fact, some other places they tell me that I'm a Nigerian. At one time I was arrested in Lagos when I was observing an election in 2003. And I was told, don't you know that today people are not supposed to be driving? The driver told him, I'm carrying an Oga. Then when they went to look, there was, of course, we had a sticker. And he came and looked at me and said, "Who, you?" I said, "Yes, I'm an observer." "You are Nigerian?" I said, "No, I'm not a Nigerian." "Come on, man, don't play around with us. You're a Nigerian." Eventually, when I showed my passport, then I realized I was not a Nigerian. But I'm saying that Nigeria has gone through very trying moments in our history. I remember the struggle for independence. I remember Zik. And I remember Awolo. Those were involved. The Sayoduna Sekoto. I remember Tafawa Balewa period. I remember the coming of Ironzi, the transition from civilian to military. I remember Yakub Gowon. And then I remember General Murtala Mohammed. I remember, of course, Baba Basanjo. Then the first transition to civilian. Then came the Shagari period, first Babangida, then the Butcher of Abuja, the Nabi Salam. Then I was here in the campaign of 1999. I was with Baba Basanjo and Falai, professor. I traveled around the country. I was here in Abuja, Nasarawa, Jos, Kano, Enugu, Anambra, down Port Harcourt. I was in Lagos, of course. I was in Beokuta, in Ibadan. So I know Nigeria. I know Nigeria, the issues of elections in Nigeria. And I was observing the elections in Lagos when you had Tinubu and his other competitor. I was an observer of NDI-IRI team. So I know the challenges that Nigeria has faced in this period of democratization process. There have been gains and losses. I know the challenges you faced when Obasanjo, Atiku, then Yaradua, then Jonathan, and of course now the final one. You now have this face here. So I know the challenges that have been here. I know there's some gains and losses. But what we want to say is that we should continue on the path of progress. I know that there have been mistakes which have been done, but we say we don't want to live in the past. We want to move in the future. We want to look at what is coming forward for the continent. So I want to say in conclusion that if the continent democrats, together with the international community of democracies, do not come together and defend the vote, the elections and democracy will be delegitimized in Africa with devastating consequences. As you face these elections next month, which is tomorrow's month, in February, we really want to urge Nigerians to stand firm and ensure that the voice of the people is respected. As they say in Latin, that vox populi, vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. We want to wish Nigeria all the best in these forthcoming elections. Thank you very much for listening to me.
We appreciate you indeed. Thank you. Ademola Kasumu, MD Car Springs, Mr. Chris Finebone, Honorable Commissioner of Information and Rivers State, representing His Excellency the Governor, Mr. Lekon Abdul, MD Bond Global Energy, Mr. Yinka Dewole, Mr. Uchene, and Benga Olubajo. Thank you for your support. Boa Foods and CEO, Engineer Ayodele Abioye, and Executive Director Ishaku Rabiu, thank you very much. And Malam Idado Ibrahim, representing the National Coordinator of Presidential Support Committee. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Leadership Award has been on for years. And one characteristic of all of the people that has won this award reminds me of what the late Martin Luther King said. He said, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets as Michelangelo painted, Beethoven composed music, and Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. And that's one trait amongst all of the award winners over the years. So what has the story been like? We have a short 5-minute documentary on the journey so far.
All this we owe both to ourselves and to the peoples of the world.
Leadership is not just about power or prestige. It's about the courage to chart a new course, to blaze new trails and inspire others to greatness. The Leadership Awards organization is dedicated to recognizing those who embody the spirit of leadership and are dedicated to making the world a better place.
I like to say this all the time. I was a housewife then. So I was looking at it from home, you know, looking at the different parts, how it was unfolding. The paper started, and quickly my husband decided that it was good to more or less acknowledge people in society that the paper felt were doing well.
We looked at what happens internationally, globally. You remember there's a Times Award that comes out also once in a year. So we felt that we could replicate that in Nigeria.
It started to evolve. The first time it was just, it was mentioned in the paper, you know, Person of the Year, Governors of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year, you know, those types of things. And then it started to evolve into this event that we now have today.
The Leadership Award has become a gold standard because of the quality of the processes that are involved in choosing whoever emerges.
We are asking ourselves, what value in the year under consideration, what particular value has this person or this institution brought to the table? How have they been consequential in the affairs either of their community or the parastatal of government or the agency of government that they are in charge of? These are some of the things that we consider. At the end of the day, these nominees are put to vote. And usually the nominees that get the highest number of votes then get the award.
The society now looks up to it that any body that leadership is awarding must have really earned it. 2018, we are the ones that literally brought out a cleric, Imam Abdullahi Abubakar.
Jointly that year shared that award with the chairman, CEO of Dangote.
We were the first person to recognize him for 7 Christians.
What happened then was that there were some folks who were running away from attacks from other groups. And this imam, and of course a number of those people who were running away at that time were obviously Christians, I think. But the imam gave them shelter in his mosque. That was a very, very significant moment in the life of this award. And we thought at that time that it was important to send a message, not just to that particular community, but across the country, of the need for interfaith harmony.
We care about what we do. We care about the nation. We care about accountability of the people and the things that we're talking about.
That singular value of combining both a moment of reflection in terms of what we are doing, in terms of what we consider the defining issues of the time, with also awarding people that we found, people and institutions that we found have been outstanding, is one very outstanding value of the award.
Consistently doing this will, in one way or another, bring a little change in that little space, in that little space that we are shining our light on, or shining our truth on, you know what I mean? So those are the 3 things I think. I think consistency, passion with which we execute our work, and integrity in doing our work as well. I think so.
So every year we do the very best we can to make the process more thorough, more transparent, more inclusive. And I do believe that by the grace of God, in the next couple of years, we'll be celebrating it not just as the gold standard, but potentially as the platinum standard of awards in the country and in the world. It's going to be a global event in the world.
We can use that event to truly show a side of leadership that is not seen every day. Our excellence, our love for Nigeria, our work, our unity, our passion for everything that we do, displayed in that one event, if you know what I mean. That's what I'm hoping.
I take this moment to salute the great foresight, tenacity, and doggedness of your founder, late Sam Isaac, who positioned the leadership newspapers to what it is today. May his soul continue to rest in peace.
African Development Bank, may the soul of the founder continue to rest in perfect peace. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment. The award ceremony kicks off now. And the first award will be that of the Outstanding Young Person of the Year 2022. And he is Musa Sani.
Leadership Award 2022. Leadership Outstanding Young Person of the Year 2022. Musa Sani, for demonstrating ingenuity, which is rare in this part of the globe, by building a miniature prototype of Borno State's first flyover at the tender age of 13, compelling the state governor to place him on instant scholarship. Musa Sani is the Leadership Outstanding Young Person of the Year 2022.
As a people, with one soul, with one voice,
You're welcome.
we're a nation undivided and poised.
Abuja will be needing you. Honorable Minister, he can come and build some flyover for us in Abuja here. Thank you. Thank you, Musa Sani. When I see young men like this, I just know there's hope for Nigeria and for our continent. Congratulations. Because how do you can go? Just be beside me here, this way. Thank you. Musa, you can go now. Thank you. The next award is Artist of the Year 2022. Okay. And the winner here, the person collecting the award is Oluwatobiloba Daniel Anidugbe. But we all know him all over the world as Keys Daniel.
Leadership Award 2022. Leadership Artist of the Year 2022. Oluwatobiloba Daniel Anidugbe, professionally known as Keys Daniel, is a Nigerian Afrobeats, pop, R&B singer and songwriter. The 27-year-old is the founder of Flyboy Inc. record label, which launched operations in 2017. Keys Daniel developed an interest in music after graduating from the university and released singles Yeba and Woju in 2013, which instantly became hits and made him an immediate household name. Since his foray into the music industry, Keys Daniel has released 4 studio albums, performed on global stages, and received several international recognition as one of the prominent figures championing the export of Nigerian Afrobeats music and culture to the global community. In May 2022, he released Buga, a song that has captured many hearts across the continent and beyond, as it quickly became an anthem in Nigeria. For staying relevant in the music industry, releasing hit songs back-to-back with hit singles like Buga, becoming a household anthem globally, and one of the songs built to be performed at the 2023 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, Keys Daniel is the Leadership Artist of the Year 2022.
His delegation, the young man, is on a global tour all over the world. You know, the beauty of it is that beyond music, Keys Daniel is a first-class graduate of water engineering. And so we have, please help us to do the honors while his team are still here to join us. Thank you. Now you can leave us. Thank you very much. Thank you. The sports person of the year will go to our under-17 team, the Flamingos of Nigeria. Do we have a representative here?
Leadership Award 2022. Leadership Sports Person of the Year 2022. The Flamingos. For winning Nigeria's first ever medal at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. The second African team to achieve the feat after Ghana in 2012. Nigeria's Under-17 women football team, the Flamingos, is the Leadership Sports Person of the Year 2022. Leadership Award 2022. Leadership